Hello and welcome. We are Ghostlight RPGs. We're here beginning our 24-hour live scream to kick off the Halloween season and start ourselves off right with a little bit of Cthulhu Dark. My name is Graham Ward. My pronouns are he, him. And I will be GMing this session of Graham Walmsley's game. Another Graham W, so much respect. I don't think that means anything, but it does make me smile. Okay, so let's just introduce ourselves a little bit. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about myself other than that, we're here, we're running this great game, and I'm just so excited to play with all of you. So who would like to jump in?
My name is Kristin. I use she, her pronouns. I've been on Ghostlight in a couple of things. I'm excited to be here this morning, bright and early. I'm a writer and artist living in upstate New York. And I'm playing Sister Noelle.
Oh, I can't wait to learn more about your characters. Thanks, Kristin. Anyone else want to introduce themselves?
Sure, I'll jump in. I'm Carson, Wright. I see him pronouns. Very, very happy to be back on Ghostlight this bright and shining morning. We're just going to pretend like it's a normal morning. And I am going to be playing Leslie Hayes tonight.
Okay, welcome.
I love that for you. Hey everyone, my name is Justin. I use he, him pronouns. I am very, very excited to be here tonight. And I will be playing Duffy Valdez. He's also excited to be here.
Yeah.
He won't be for long.
He won't be.
Ominous.
My name is William. He, him pronouns. Has been quite a while since I have had the pleasure of partaking in good times here with Ghostlight RPGs. So I'm super excited about jumping back in tonight. I'll be playing Lawrence Martin.
All right. Well, just to sort of give us a little more of an intro before we jump in and do like character introductions and get going with this scenario. We, just so everyone is kind of aware of what we do here at Ghostlight, we're primarily theater artists who are keeping the lamps lit by doing role-playing games, telling stories, sharing our love of this medium with everyone. And we generally do like a variety of tabletop role-playing game streams. And so tonight we are beginning this 24-hour live scream with Cthulhu Dark, which is a system written by Graham Walmsley with the intent of emulating that kind of cosmic, often Lovecraftian horror. And it is a very rules light system. You'll see pretty quickly how it works and how we'll move forward. I love that about it. And let's see, anything else to say about the system? Well, okay, so in case it's not clear, it's Cthulhu light, but it's Cthulhu, so it's Cthulhu Dark, I feel like I need to explain that.
I also need to commit to a flub that I just realized I made. It says D&D Ravenloft underneath us right now. I'm gonna fix that right now. So just ignore the editing that is going on live. This is live, baby.
This is what we do. Yeah, that is an utter lie. We're going to be continuing with the rest of our schedule tonight. Throughout the next 24 hours, we're going to be running Dish Pit Witches. We're going to be running Tales from the Loop. We're going to be running The Haunting of Equestria in the Tales of Equestria system. And then, of course, as the lie says underneath, we'll be playing
a lie no longer.
Ravenloft. Yeah, Ravenloft, the iconic D&D adventure. And then in the midst there, right after this session, actually, Justin and I are going to do a little mini painting, paint up some monsters, and hopefully be extremely entertaining. Okay, so just so everyone kind of knows, in terms of what we're going to be doing tonight, we are actually also launching our Patreon. This is a big moment for us. We're like finally getting ways for you to contribute more. If you like what we do, if you've enjoyed our streams, please consider jumping on Patreon. There is a command that we can use. Let's see. Someone hit that command. It's like exclamation point.
Patreon?
Patreon? Let's try it. Hey,
That
look
works.
at that.
Gotta love it.
Okay, and I will copy that Patreon. It's actually just patreon.com/Ghostlight RPGs, rather predictably.
Sick.
So I'll paste that in there and you can see. It's pretty simple. The real motivation for people to join our Patreon is that you can jump into the Discord server and become part of our community. Our goal is to, provide a space where we can talk about games. We can have pickup games occasionally, maybe even run by like some of us, and give you a chance to chat with us behind the scenes and just sort of join the fam. So please consider doing that if you want to support what we're doing. Okay, let's see. What else do we want to talk about before the horrors of the universe descend upon us? So everyone knows that we're using safety tools. If you see a player flash a yellow, green, or red object on the screen, you'll know that's us using our communication tools. And we believe that that's important. I mean, even more so with horror games. So you'll be seeing that. Along with that, in terms of content warning, this game will definitely feature some creepy stuff, bodies, people who have been harmed in various ways and descriptions thereof. There will almost certainly be a mention of suicide, so be aware of that content that's coming up. And then just, this is general horror theme. So you may find things that are suddenly distasteful, but we're not here to be gratuitous. So that's a content warning. And I believe with that, we can move forward as we step into Lovecraft country and begin our story. We begin actually on a rather lovely fall morning. The sun is rising through the mist and climbing up to a clearer sky above in Arkham, Massachusetts. The year is 1931. The depression is certainly taking its toll on the people who live in Massachusetts. And we'll begin with Lawrence Martin. What is Lawrence Martin doing this fine Monday morning?
So Lawrence, former student in Miskatonic, who dropped out for reasons that he won't disclose without prodding. Probably up for work that morning, making his way, perhaps delivering newspapers. Since dropping out from school, he'll take on any odd job, just trying to stay afloat long enough to figure out whatever it is that he's going to do next, which from time to time involves working for Mrs. Stanton, the private investigator.
Yes, you received a letter which was addressed to the associates of Miss R. Stanton. Rebecca Stanton is a private investigator who works in Arkham and is very involved in all kinds of pursuits that get her information, access, and that facilitate her work as a procurer of facts and occasionally objects of interest. She approached you looking for some insights into the Miskatonic University faculty that you rubbed shoulders with in your time there. And specifically, you know, obviously, that the Professor Lane Pruitt had a writing case stolen, which contained research that was, for whatever reason, deemed to be of a sensitive nature and needs to be returned as soon as possible. So this letter that was delivered to you references your kind of relationship with Rebecca Stanton, the investigator, and requests that you visit a place called Meech Place Farm, where the presumed thief of this writing case was taken away suddenly. More information probably to come on that. So as you're, getting up for work, you're probably planning on doing maybe a half day and then heading up to Ipswich.
Yeah, just based on the sudden nature of the letter, I'm sure has some general obligations to take care of that morning. And as soon as those are wrapped up, he plans to head that way. A little hesitant. He's had some issues in Ipswich, but upon reading the letter, looking at the map, realizing that he's being directed to North Ipswich and not East Ipswich, agrees to take on the job for Mrs. Stanton.
Okay. And actually, Rebecca Stanton would have met you at the end of your half day or whatever it is. Once you've kind of prepared for your departure, she'll meet you and deliver the keys to a car, which she says you can use to drive up to Ipswich. And she'll give you the name of a local tavern called the Grinning Fox, where you will rendezvous with the others that she has kind of hired and roped into obtaining this piece of evidence. And she'll just kind of make some excuses. I'm really sorry. I don't normally like to just throw a bunch of people together and have them do my work for me, but I actually was out near the Meech farm in North Ipswich, and unfortunately I was spotted. So I think if I show my face there, I'd only draw more attention.
Sure. I understand. That makes perfect sense. I just want to I feel like I need to clarify with you one last time. I just want to make sure the farm, and you've given us a map here. I've drawn it out for me, but we're not going anywhere near the salt flats, are we?
No, I see no reason why it would take you there. Just straight to Meech Place Farm. No reason to be jumpy.
It's okay. I mean, you've been good to me, and I appreciate the money. I could use it. So, yeah, absolutely. As soon as I finish up with what I'm doing here, I'll head that way directly. The Grinning Fox, you say? I can make it to the. I should, just a couple hours. I should be there, no problem.
She closes her cigarette case and is kind of eyeing you, with a sense of analysis. And she opens her mouth, then lets it close again, exhales, and then finally just says, "Keep a lid on yourself, okay? Don't do anything stupid."
No, I wouldn't. It's just me. Sorry. I will. Thank you, Miss Stanton.
And she tosses down some cash to pay for your coffee and leaves you. So around this time, Sister Noelle, what are you doing this morning?
Well, having gotten special permission from the Mother Superior to actually leave the cloister, I imagine I've arrived at a local inn. Perhaps the abbey where I typically live is close to Ipswich, so perhaps I've made my way directly to the Grinning Fox, and I've gotten there the night before. And Sister Noelle is so used to cloistered life, she hasn't left the abbey in a few years now. She's sort of excited to be out in the world, also very nervous about the potential corrupting influences of the world. As she, you know, is in the tavern, eyeing the drunks the night before, has gone to sleep, has woken up the next morning, trying to figure out the group that what's her name again?
Rebecca Stanton.
That Rebecca Stanton has pulled together.
Yeah. This morning you'll hear a soft knock on your door, and a kind of matronly voice from outside say, "Is there anything you've been needing this morning?"
I haven't done my prayers yet. If you could wait just a second, and I'll be right down.
Excuse me. Very, very good. Okay, I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt the praying. That was an unfortunate mistake. She's kind of like mumbling under her breath. She said, "I'm just going around turning down the beds. So, if you need anything, you just stroll right over. Okay, I'm the third door down on the first floor."
And Sister Noelle will open the door. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. I thought typically the offices, and I was going to do, Compline and Vespers, and I'm so used to the schedule, you see.
Oh, yes. Well, I hope you enjoy your schedule while you're in Ipswich. I've got quite a schedule myself, and it involves turning down about 30 more beds, so I'm going to move this way.
Right.
And she kind of like keeps looking at you for a minute over her shoulder as she continues down the hallway.
And Sister Noelle is, of course, in like a full black and white habit. It's the novice habit, maybe a little hairs poking out the front, but yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, you've got some time to yourself this morning, so you can engage in whatever activity strikes your fancy while you wait for your companions to arrive. Speaking of which, Duffy Valdez, you're the beat cop here, now moved out to the country, and whatever your morning consists of, it's certainly less peaceful than that of Sister Noelle.
I think I'm actually off duty today.
Okay.
But I find myself in my captain's office, barking up the wrong tree, likely. I'm telling you, Cap, there's something screwy going on in the coroner's office. I don't know what it is. I don't have all the evidence. I'm trying to do better. That's the whole reason I'm here. But I
Listen to me.
What?
Officer Valdez.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear any more of your cockamamie stories, okay? I think that you've had quite enough time to ingratiate yourself with the coroners. You should be able to do your job just as much as anyone else.
Yeah, I could do my job, Cap. It's not a question of if I can do my job. I'm trying to be a team player. That's what you want, right? That's what you want from me.
That is exactly what I want from you, Mr. Valdez. And furthermore, I would like you to know when to keep your mouth shut and when to stop asking questions of those who are clearly hostile. We don't need this force to be brought under any ill repute.
Right.
This is a family town. We do things a certain way here, and I know you're not used to that since you've been in the mean streets of New York City.
Don't say it like that. Don't say.
I'll say it whichever way I please, Officer Valdez. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some paperwork to fill out.
Enjoy your paperwork. Stand up.
You see, he pulls out a form that says missing record, and he starts filling it out. And this is for the missing coroner's report that you were unable to obtain for this other case.
Duffy slams the door on his way out. Makes a big show about it too, like to the rest of the department. Like, pfft.
You see a couple of them kind of look over at you, shake their heads. One or two give a little more of a generous expression to you as you walk down the hall and out the main doors into the streets of Ipswich. Okay, let us shift then to our final character, Lawrence Martin. What occupies your morning today?
Leslie Hayes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I said the wrong
yes.
name. Yes, Leslie
course.
Hayes.
It's the next day, Lawrence.
Yes.
Ground.
I suppose Lawrence is up early despite playing at the local theater late into the night, but as is routine and such, it's up early and out and about, usually off to the butcher to pick up his regular allotments and spending his morning usually puttering about and trying to find something interesting about the town that he is maybe reluctantly visiting with his company that has stopped here for some time.
Maybe while you're picking up a paper or coffee, someone looks over you and says, hey, don't I know you from somewhere?
I would say perhaps you do.
You that lawyer from downtown?
No, not a lawyer. Are you sure you haven't seen me somewhere else?
Oh, sorry. No, I mean, you just look familiar. Maybe just one of those faces.
Yes, one of those. Do you go to the theater, perhaps?
Well, no. You can see the look of recognition pass over the face of the gentleman as he realizes who you are and clearly has not been to the theater. Well, yeah, I make it out from time to time. It's been a little bit since the missus and I made it out to the theater.
Well, you should come more often.
What show are you doing? Is that another musical?
No, I'm afraid something a little more, shall we say, a bit, a higher offering.
Oh, good,
perhaps.
because, they used to do these melodramas down there, and they were absolutely stunning. Real beautiful place.
Yes, I'm sure they were. Much the American sensibility, I suppose, but...
The hell's that supposed to mean?
It's simply a way of you here enjoy your theater in the way that you do, and that is wonderful. I meant no offense, of course.
No, of course not. Okay, well, have a good day. Enjoy your melodrama. Good luck.
Oh.
And he busies himself about.
Yeah. He shakes his head and back out into the street and sighs. And
several hours later, you all one by one gather at the Grinning Fox, and you find each other, and gather at a table where you're able to discuss whatever your plans might be. Just in terms of getting you set up, your communication from Rebecca Stanton would make it clear that the individual you're looking for is one Franklin Meach. Franklin Meach was a student who had been hired at the start of the semester as a research assistant in Professor Pruitt's department. Meach is the son of a farmer from a little steading that's kind of north of the town here in the hills. And he was strangely struck by a taxi in Arkham. And it was at that point that he was brought home back to Meach Place Farm. But it was the exact same time that this writing case disappeared. Hence the suspicion of the good professor. So there was a little bit of mystery around the state of Franklin. but it's presumed that he's there at the farm. Rebecca Stanton wasn't able to obtain any information about the goings-on at the farm before she was kind of seen and quickly identified as someone who wasn't welcome around the place. And so she's now turning over or handing off the torch to you. So, any other preparations you'd like to make? This is the perfect time for it right now. And or also feel free, if like there's information that you think your character might have, we can clarify those things too.
I might have asked around with anyone that I still knew at Miskatonic if they knew Meech. I don't believe that I would have had the pleasure of meeting him, but someone who's still in one of the programs might have, just to get some insight into whether or not he seemed to have been acting strange for a long period of time, or if there was a sudden shift, something along those lines.
Okay, would you say this constitutes an investigation?
I would indeed say that this constitutes an investigation.
Okay, so the way the system works is that anytime you investigate something, you generally have a very high chance to succeed. But when you roll your die, it will determine how well your investigation succeeds. So you might just get a bare minimum of information that you need, or you might get something excellent. You might even get too much and regret what you uncover. So let's see. In this situation, you are doing something within human capability. So you roll 1d6 for that. And then if it's within your occupational expertise. Now, in your case, I guess as a student or former student, is that kind of how you're defining?
Yeah, having dropped, I'm like would have dropped out like in his third or fourth year, but still may know a couple of people in the program, and so just to ask around, but wouldn't be able to go much further than that.
Excellent. Yeah. So go ahead and roll 2 dice.
5 is being the highest.
Okay. Very good. So the highest die is a 5, which means you succeed well, and you might get something extra. So as you're asking around, you speak with several of the students who are currently teaching. These are graduate students who are teaching undergrad courses in archaeology and folklore. And there's one who actually turns out to currently be a teacher's assistant for Professor Pruitt, whose research was stolen. And she says, yes, I did speak with Meech once or twice when he was here in the classroom. A little sullen, kept to himself, kind of a country kid, didn't really fit in with the others. He declined a couple invitations for drinks from us who work on the team.
Okay, yeah, that checks out. Can I ask you something else about Dr. Pruitt?
Of course.
So I'm sure at this point you heard about everything that happened up at Ipswich and that whole sort of thing. I was curious, when that all unfolded, there were a lot of us there that were sort of pushed by the faculty to keep going, even though we knew we shouldn't, that we should stop. I haven't had the opportunity to work with Dr. Pruitt before. I was wondering if you might consider him to be the same sort of fellow to push when they might not or shouldn't, and to not really care too much about anything other than themselves. I mean, I understand if you can't share any of that with me, because I mean, I'm asking a lot there, but
no, I mean, I have worked rather closely with Dr. Pruitt, and he's always seemed like a real gentleman, very conscientious, concerned for the good of the students and the graduates. He wasn't involved in that project, was he?
No, it's not that. It's just that, well, I know that some of the professors here at Miskatonic, sometimes they're well, all their concern is wrapped up in the thing that they're focused on, right? Like the thing that they're working on, and that becomes what's most important. And then all of a sudden, people around them, people working for them, they don't matter as much. I just wanted to make sure that we're going to be looking for something for Mr. Pruitt. And to be honest, hearing that from you is a weight off my shoulders, because I didn't want to walk into something that I wasn't prepared for. And it sounds like that won't be the case. So thank you so much.
She kind of smiles gently, recognizing what you're saying, and then she leans in a little closer, kind of lowers her voice, and says, Lawrence, you know, those of us who stayed on after that, we really miss you. We wish you'd come back.
His eyes drop to the floor, and kind of thinks back, and all of the mixed emotions that wrap into that. I'm. All of that was a lot, and I'd like to, and at some point, maybe I will. Hopefully I will. I gotta focus on me and some other things. There's some like embarrassment. He kind of becomes flushed, and
I know that you and Danny both kind of dropped out after working all those long hours, but I think it was a fluke. I don't think that the professors would be pushing you so hard these days. I think there's been some talk amongst the faculty about improving conditions and being good to the research assistants. I mean, going on a dig like that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You should turn it into something good, not a cudgel to hit yourself with.
I'll say this. I want to believe you, and hopefully you're right. But just remember, if you ever find yourself one day, like deep in the pit of your stomach, knowing that you shouldn't do something, or that it's time to stop and walk away, don't let any single person tell you that that's not the right thing to do and make you stay someplace you don't want to be longer than you have to. Okay?
Okay, Lawrence. Okay. She kind of clasps your shoulder for a second, and then looks back again, and then walks away.
Okay.
One other piece of information you do pick up as you're making these inquiries is about the taxi accident. This is your little something extra from your roll. So when Franklin Meach was struck by the taxi, you hear an eyewitness report of another student who was crossing the street at the same time. And she reports to you that the accident looked really bad. Like, she thought that he would be dead. She said that she wasn't quite looking, but as soon as she turned her head, she saw this streak of this black painted cab, racing around a corner, and struck him, and his head actually went down under the grill of the car. And she said as soon as she saw that, she thought he was dead. And they rushed him to a hospital, and it wasn't until later on that night that she heard that he had actually been rushed out of town and back to the farm. Okay, anyone else want to make any preparations? I also want to give you a chance to sort of discuss as characters here now that you're together.
Sure. I wondered...
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Is it possible that I could have arrived a little early? I don't want to... is there a library, perhaps?
Yeah, Ipswich doesn't have quite the extensive libraries that Arkham has at Miskatonic University, but there's a little historical society building that adjoins a kind of a community library here, and it's humble, but there's definitely stuff there.
Great. he'll, I think, enter into the room and approach whoever's available to assist. Yes, a good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. What is it that I can do for you?
Well, I am here visiting in Ipswich for the day, down from Arkham, where I am playing in a production of Hamlet, actually.
Very good, very good,
Yes,
sir.
yes. Do you come to the theater often?
I haven't been to the theater in Arkham in some time. No.
You should. We would certainly love to see more people.
I should do that. That would be a good thing.
Yes. I can assure you the performances are top rate. Of course. Speaking, if I may, for myself, it is.
Were you interested in a book?
Yes. Actually, I'm here a little early, and there was unfortunately something I'm finding difficult to get my hands on. I found it in the libraries up in Arkham, and it's just burned itself into my mind. The poetry of it is unlike anything I've heard. Perhaps it may be a long shot, but have you heard of The King in Yellow?
Suddenly, his kind of kindly face just goes white, and he says, "You get the hell out of here. And you don't ever ask about The King in Yellow again. That book is banned. Banned. Moral degenerate."
Sorry, I don't understand why it would be. The words "along the shore, the cloud waves break, the twin suns..."
Stop it! And he actually grabs a book from right in front of him, tears out the first page his hand can wrap around, and stuffs it in his ear, and walks away going, "Ah, bah, 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 bah."
And he'll sort of thinks about asking about the Meach farm, and maybe recognizes
The other 5 people in the library are all just looking at you like, "What have you done?"
Excuse me, pardon me. I'm just visiting. And then I'll kind of rush my way out. And on the way out, sort of under my breath, continue the lines that he can remember from The King in Yellow.
Okay.
Graham, how far out is the Meach Place farm from like the center, like town of Ipswich?
You've been told it's roughly 10-12 miles.
Okay.
So in a car, not a long drive at all.
I think like just that morning before I'm supposed to meet with them, like maybe I have a little extra time or something. I think I'd like to drive out just to the farm and just kind of do a pass by and just see if I can spot any cars, any movement, like people going in and out, like just kind of do some like a basic patrol.
Sure. Now, would this be in your patrol car?
I mean, I don't think Duffy has a legitimate patrol car. I think he has like his car that he like sometimes sticks the little light on top of.
Okay, I like it.
So it's pretty anonymous.
Great. Yeah, so as you head out in that direction, you can see the farm is basically the only thing within, 6 miles or so. It's kind of perched up on a hill, and then there's this long sloping farmland that comes down southward from the homestead.
Okay.
So you can see it from quite a distance as you're coming up here. The hills kind of roll up behind it toward the north and start to obscure the horizon up there, but the house right there is just right on the hill. What you see is that there's a well out front. The crops look like they're not particularly well attended to. And actually, as you're driving up, you suddenly have to screech and slam the brakes as you almost hit a goat that's just kind of like hobbling along the road, and it stops and looks at you with this almost malevolent glare.
Duffy stares at this goat for longer than he thinks he is. Fucking goat. It's just like reverse, get back on the road, try to go around it if I can.
Yeah, it never moves from the spot, just continues watching you as you head up the lane, but you're able to get around it.
He
And
definitely kind of watches it as he passes it and has to like rip his eyes away.
getting closer to the farm, you now I think this probably constitutes an investigation.
Yeah.
So go ahead and
Sure.
roll.
Now, do you think this is within my occupational expertise?
Yeah,
Little
yeah, I think so.
Alright,
Mhm.
so these
The
2
dice.
d6. Take the higher, which is a 2.
Okay, so with a 2, you barely succeed. So as you're kind of driving by, you don't want to get too far up the lane because eventually it just stops at the house. But you can kind of drive up enough to peek up toward the house. You don't see anyone walking around. In fact, and you don't hear anything. You can see the weather vane is kind of moving back and forth in the wind.
I think
And there's a pretty big stone well out front, right in front of the house, and it kind of makes like a circle where carts or cars might, circle around and then head back down the lane.
I think Duffy sits there for maybe 10 minutes or so, just kind of watching. I don't think he's really looking for people or vehicles, and that's
Yeah. Okay.
So
Well, you barely succeed. So, as you're looking for people, eventually, after about 10 minutes, a young girl about 8 years old throws open a bulkhead that leads down into the cellar. So she's coming up from the cellar to the exterior of the house.
Okay.
She kind of like peeks her head up. You can see she's pretty dirty. Her hair's unbrushed. She's wearing what looks like it used to be a kind of bright pink, maybe checkered dress, but it's pretty faded and dusty. And she pulls out a big pail, like a metal pail, maybe aluminum or something. And she goes to the well and starts cranking it down to fill water. And she's looking around, and then she sees you, and she drops the crank for the well, and you hear the bucket splash at the bottom, and she runs back down to the bulkhead and slams it shut.
What the hell was that? I think Duffy considers getting out and like going to talk to her, and then is like, that's trespassing. I've been told not to do that. And he just, after another like minute of contemplation, drives off back down the road towards town.
As you do, you see 3 huge ravens flap past just in front of your windshield, and you narrowly miss them. But then you continue down the road and make it back to Ipswich in time to meet your friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're all gathered here in the Grinning Fox. You know your task, and you've got a little bit of information to go on. So the floor is yours.
I think Duffy shows up late, like a couple minutes late, walking in. Hello. You all here for the friends of Bex, or
Miss Stanton? Yes, we're meeting for the mission quest. No, job. It's a job.
you are here for the job?
Me? Yes. Sister Noelle. She does not extend her hand to greet you.
Sister Noelle. Officer Valdez, nice to meet you. Call me Duff. Great.
Mr. Valdez.
Uh,
as they're sitting around the table, Sister Noelle has kind of moved her seat, so she's sitting, a little bit away from the table and noticeably several feet away from all the men. She's nervously fiddling with her rosary.
Well, my name's Lawrence. In any of the work that any of you have done for Mrs. Stanton before, have you ever met with other people like this?
I can't say I've done any work for her before. This is my first adventure, shall we say.
Yeah,
okay.
Same. This is more of a personal favor, really, than anything else. Have you done work for her before?
From time to time, Mrs. Stanton, she, mostly down in Arkham at Miskatonic University. It's really, I don't know, maybe this is more common than not, but it was odd because I've never worked with others, and she stressed the need for, and with that he kind of slinks back down into his chair and contemplates this and feels kind of off-put, having maybe overshared, realizing that no one else at the table has ever worked for Miss Stanton in quite the same capacity.
Well, Lawrence, glad to have you on the team, I suppose. And you are?
Yes, Mr. Leslie Hayes. Not yourself. Yes.
Mr. Hayes. Nice to
Hayes,
meet you.
Leslie Hayes. That name's familiar.
Yes. Do you happen to attend the theater often?
That's it. That's exactly okay. So that's where you look very familiar. I'm so sorry I didn't.
No. Of course, this is wonderful. In fact, I'm very flattered. Thank you.
You work at the cinema?
No, nothing quite as
Because I saw that new Dracula, and that was it's pretty great.
I'm sure it was, but nothing quite as simple and fleeting as that. No, I work on the stage, of course, Shakespeare and the like. Yes.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I've read Mr. Shakespeare.
Yes. And what do you make of him?
Well, I mean, I think, of course, he's wonderful, and it's certainly more respectable than some of the vaudeville but I don't think he always portrays evil as being properly dismissed. Falstaff, for example, I think we're meant to laugh at him, but he's quite an evil man, don't you think?
Well, I am taken aback. I did not expect you to know as much about Shakespeare as you seem to.
Well, I don't think he needs to be on the stage. I think he could be properly read, as one should.
If not on the stage, then where?
In a book.
In a book, read. Quietly in the mind, not performed.
Of course not.
Well, that's quite an interesting, and shall I say, sounds rather boring to me. I mean, there's nothing quite like the electricity, the virility of his words on the stage, performed by actors and artists of great training and passion. He has a lot to say about a great many subjects, of course, as you must know.
Well, Mr. Hayes, I'm sure you're pleased that the church has allowed actors to be buried on church grounds recently, and I want you to know I don't think you're necessarily going to hell.
Anybody make coffee? Or I'll do it.
I'll do it.
Duffy finds a coffee machine if there is one.
Missing the opportunity. Lawrence is gonna slink back down in the chair again. It was that was the no, okay, yes. Duffy's taking care of that. I'm going to sit here still.
Great. Sorry, I thought I had one more thing, but I think I'll leave it there for now.
So,
are there any other plans before you head to the farm?
Well, I was gonna ask, Mr. Vidal, you work in law enforcement, right? I'm assuming. Yeah. Okay, so I was talking to some people at Miskatonic, and the gentleman that.
Sorry, Miss. Who's Miskatonic?
The university in Arkham.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. Keep going.
So, I talked to someone who saw Franklin Meach get struck by the taxi, and I was wondering, had you heard anything about him being brought here to Ipswich? Was he taken to the hospital? The reason I ask is the person I spoke to seemed quite convinced that the accident he was involved in would have been fatal. And someone struck in that way, their best chance at survival, I would think, in this area, without going to Boston maybe, would be at Miskatonic University. But instead, he was immediately rushed here to Ipswich.
Yeah,
and if we are to believe Professor Pruitt, he's still alive. So,
yeah, I checked hospital records here, and he was never admitted. So, if they brought him back, they must have taken him straight back to the farm. I have to admit, I did a little loop around the farm earlier this morning, actually, and is anybody does Franklin have a daughter, or I saw a girl. She was. Never mind.
He might. I think the family owns the farm. I think, right? So maybe, I don't know. Perhaps, I don't know. I didn't ask. Maybe he has a little sister, or I don't think he'd have a daughter. He was a student. So, but I didn't ask how old he was either. So I don't know.
I turn towards Sister Noelle and Leslie Hayes, and I say, "You two, anything you want to share?"
Well, I'm afraid I sort of didn't quite make myself. I wanted to find some information out today, but I sort of blew my chance, as it were. So I'm along for the ride.
I will say I did used to work for a branch of the Meach family. Graham, do I have any insight on family tree stuff?
Well, you know that Franklin definitely has like parents who run the farm, so he doesn't live there alone. It's likely that he has siblings. Let's see. If you want to go ahead and make a roll, you could. Otherwise, that would be the extent of the information you have.
I'll make a roll.
Great. So I think because of your background in the area and working on their cousin's farm, go ahead and roll 2 dice for yours.
And just the added total?
It's the highest roll out of the
6.
2. Okay, so 6 is a rather special result. As in some things, you know, the highest result on the die might mean that you exceed exceptionally well. This is true in this case. You succeed brilliantly, and you get something extra, but in this case, it's possibly a little more than you wanted. What is your, actually I should say, as we start, your insight, which represents your insight into things beyond mortal ken, it starts off at 1. So what was the other die results?
1.
Okay. So, if your insight die is, okay, you didn't roll an insight die in this case because it wasn't anything that would leave you shaken, and you weren't like pushing yourself,
right,
or risking your sanity. So I don't think your insight is going to go up yet. Okay. So what that means is you know the following. The father of the family is Oberyn Meach. And you believe that he hasn't actually been seen off the farm in years. Even back when you were working for the cousins, I don't know how long ago it would have been, but like maybe a couple years ago, or do you think more?
I think probably like 4-5 years ago.
Great. Yeah. So at that time, Oberyn was known to be like working on the farm, but wouldn't leave the property. He was kind of an eccentric fellow. People would talk about that aspect. And like, you remember the Meach family that you worked with, like making accommodations for the fact that if they wanted to see him, they had to go to the farm. Additionally, you know that he has a younger sister named Hepzibah Meach, and she'd be about 8 years old now.
The younger sister of the patriarch is 8.
The younger sister of Franklin.
Franklin.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
So the two kids are
sense.
Franklin and Hepzibah.
Okay.
You also know that their house used to be something of a gathering place for the whole family. Like maybe this is where the original Meaches homesteaded. And these cousins, here's your little bit of extra information that you may not want. These cousins were accused of some kind of like grave crime, whether it be like there was like a reported theft or murder or something like really untoward. And they ended up leaving the homestead where they lived with their cousins and set up their own, farm. And this would have been only about 10 years before you worked there. So there was still a lot of bad blood there. And so maybe there's like anxiety behind your recollection of them discussing like this kind of terrible history of what one of the family members did, and maybe that family member like once like hit you or something when you worked at the farm. So as you recall that, go ahead and roll your insight. And the way this works is you roll 1d6, and if you roll higher than a 1, your insight goes up by 1. And it's up to you to role play what that means.
I rolled a 3, so my insight's now at 2.
Your insight is now 2. And that maybe that manifests in like an increased anxiety from the memories of being struck.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to you.
I think she grips her rosary a little tighter, maybe actually speaks aloud a couple of the prayer beads that she has in her hands, and gently touches her cheek, and she's flushed with sort of the recollection, but perhaps you also see on her cheek is a bit of an extra flush on one side, almost like the memory of being hit on the side of her face by the family member. And to the group, she recalls the information Graham just said. She tells Duffy about Hepzibah, and that's probably who he saw. As she's talking about the crime that the family might have committed, she kind of trails off. I don't know exactly what it was, but I believe it was a great sin, a great sin indeed. An abomination towards God and our Savior, perhaps.
Ooh. All right. I've been handing out black coffees to everybody, and I give the last one to Sister Noelle. Just kind of like, there you go. Well, that was helpful. Thank you, Sister. Wish we hit the road? I'll drive.
Okay. So, maybe 25 minutes later, you arrive at the lane that leads to the Meach Place farm. I assume you're approaching, with some level of caution, not just coming in and kicking down the door. Yeah, stop me if there's anything particular you have in mind for your approach.
I think just knowing that I saw Hepzibah behind that bulkhead door, I think I would go knock on it.
Okay.
Just kind of
Great.
give it a knock. Hello there. We come in peace.
There is no response. In fact, you hear a door close up on the 3rd floor of the farmhouse.
I guess they're upstairs now.
Maybe I could. Maybe I could tell him that I'm a friend of Franklin's or something, right? From Miskatonic, right? Just like that we were worried about him, and then we've just come here to check on him, just make sure he's okay, right? Like that seems plausible. That seems like a legitimate reason for us to be here. So,
sounds good to me.
What do you guys think? Is gonna work? Okay. Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. And Lawrence kind of like flattens everything out and like making a bigger deal out of this than maybe he should. He's like okay, because he could really kind of like jittery and shaking a little bit, and he just kind of like sets himself and then like kind of marches up and then just knocks on the door to the front of the farmstead.
The door opens as you knock, and you realize it wasn't latched.
He's gonna like turn immediately to everyone else and like turn back to the door.
Real quick, can I just add, on the way in, could I have just looked down the well in like the driveway?
Yeah. As you look down the well, maybe this is happening while Lawrence is knocking. The first thing you feel is a little tickle against your nose as a little fly kind of buzzes around your face. You realize there's several of them, and down at the bottom of the well there is a stink. It smells like something turning, like maybe somebody dumped some raw meat down there, or maybe there's like a sulfur contamination or something.
Okay. Oh, it smells nasty down here.
As the door swings open, Lawrence, you can see inside, and there is a pretty narrow foyer that leads almost directly to a high, steep staircase going up to the 2nd floor. There are 3 doors in this 1st floor area coming off of the foyer, and all of them are off their hinges. They're just kind of propped against the wall, or one's lying on the floor.
I'll lean in just slightly. I'm not going to cross the threshold, but just kind of lean in and just sort of, hello? We saw someone. We're friends of Franklin's. We thought we might come by and see if he's okay. We heard he was in an accident, and we were worried about him.
At this, you hear creak, 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 thump, 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 as someone kind of quickly jogging across the floor up on the, 2nd or 3rd floor.
I think with that, Lawrence is going to like retreat to the safety of the others. Okay. Certainly not wanting to stand on the porch by himself.
Just before you pull your head back out, you glance into one of the open doorways, and you see in the living room there is a set of let's see, there are 9 urns resting on the mantle above a fireplace. It's a very old fireplace in the style of kind of like an oven range that was built on the chimney.
Okay.
Lawrence, you all right up there?
Yeah. Okay, I'm fine. I'm all of the doors in there are like off their hinges. But there's someone in the house. Like I can hear them. I can hear them running around. I'm also thinking maybe we shouldn't be here. I don't know about all of you or what arrangements you have with Mrs. Stanton, but I have a rule that I follow, and if I just I don't know. I have a feeling like maybe this isn't a good idea. But
in the night, imagining some fear, how easy is a bush supposed to bear? Do you understand?
I've read that one.
Yes.
Lawrence is just gonna kind of shake his head, like not wanting to sound stupid, especially hearing Sister say that she has read that one.
Duffy puts a hand on Lawrence's shoulder. Hey, it's okay. It's all fine. Yeah, we're just here to talk. It's a little spooky. I get it. Trust me. I saw the new Dracula, the new Frankenstein. There's a lot of good movies out this year. I just stick with me. I'll step past Lawrence, and kind of look inside and just say, I'm not gonna say anything actually. I'm gonna walk down the hallway a bit. Look through those doors maybe.
I'll come behind him and call out as well. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended. We are here to help. And like kind of glance back at the detective, like.
So you again hear the creaking up on the third floor clearly now. You think that it's accessed by just a short set of steps that lead to the left-hand side. So you'd go up this kind of high, narrow staircase onto the second floor, and then take a left, and there are some stairs that lead up to a little. It's kind of like a half floor with a loft area, and looking around in the foyer again, you see the very old hearth and the mantle that's kind of on top of it, filled with 9 urns. As you're looking at them, you realize like there's some strange forms that are on them. They're not just like jars. They have on the top almost like animal heads. You see one looks like a raven, one looks like a goat. There's a head of like a giraffe.
I'd like to sort of drawn into them. Exquisite. And I'd like to turn them if there's anything written on them.
They have plaques, but the plaques don't have writing. They have symbols. The symbols don't look like any kind of alphabet. It's like a decorative emblem. And what they look like are various masks. So the first is a mask that has a certain expression, maybe kind of a grinning face. The second you look at is a mask with a slightly different, like a disappointment expression. And there's a subtlety to each of those masks. And they're just engraved on a little plate, clearly done by hand. If lifting them, though, you can feel that there's something inside, and it's got that kind of packed density of like a fine ash.
From behind Leslie, Duffy just kind of stares at the goat one.
Pets, perhaps?
What?
I said pets, perhaps?
Pets? Yeah. Probably.
I will, it was starting to perhaps think that our friend Lawrence might have some let us be wary, shall we?
Sure. Graham, would Duffy have like a sidearm?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. I have it on me. I kind of have my hand hovering over it. I want to maybe have a... Is there like daylight coming in from windows or anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'll start to head up the stairs.
Okay. The stairs groan and creak as you go up about 18 steps, and then when you hit the landing, you can see in a side room here, this is behind you. If you're turning left to go up the stairs, behind you, you glance over and you can see that there's a coffin laid out on what is essentially a low end table, but maybe a coffee table. It's broad enough that it can support like a full-size coffin.
Looking, just glancing at that. Oh, you all hear that from Duffy upstairs.
Yeah. Just a very simple pine box. It's a little shorter than you might expect, maybe sized for someone smaller.
Did everybody else come up with me, or are you guys still downstairs?
I think I'd be in the foyer.
Okay.
Foyer.
I think hearing the noise and also a little worried about how rude Mr. Valdez is being, Sister Noelle will sort of whisper to herself, like, the Lord is my shepherd, and then follow up the stairs.
I'll have been behind you, perhaps not seeing the coffin around the corner, right? It's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Detective?
Yeah. Sorry, just I'm gonna actually walk in towards the coffin. It's closed.
Mm-hmm. It is closed.
Any markings or anything on it?
Nope, it doesn't. If you look a little closer, you can see that there are no nails. Like a pine box like this would just have a straight lid that would be nailed shut. It is not nailed shut.
I kind of eye Leslie.
Perhaps we should not disturb the dead in their resting places.
You think somebody's in there?
I wouldn't like to find out.
Yeah, sure.
And
good.
We kind of like turn back around and pass the sister. Excuse me. After you.
Perhaps we should do more to announce our coming. I wouldn't want to be rude.
Yes.
Sure, I guess that is technically regulation. Hello? Go ahead.
Sorry to disturb. We heard someone. We heard someone, and we've come to help, to check in on young Franklin.
Just in response, you don't hear anyone speak back, but you hear a come from upstairs.
Yeah, if I hear that, I will just kind of head directly towards where I heard the sound, thinking that maybe the little girl's in trouble or something.
Yeah. Okay. So you head up that kind of half stair. As Officer Valdez is taking those few steps to the landing, Sister Noelle, from the coffin behind, you hear a very distinct scrape and a bump.
The coffin, Mr. Hayes. Hayes, Mr. Hayes, the coffin. I'll turn and look. Is the coffin shifted? Is it moved? Is the lid open? And
nope.
But it was definitely from the coffin.
As you look down at it, maybe leaning forward a little bit, again you hear scrape, thump.
Hello?
I don't think talking to the coffin's gonna do much good, Mr. Hayes.
Something is inside, is it not?
Something is. I don't know if it's human.
Likely, perhaps a raccoon or some critter is crawled in.
I will.
Why don't you open it?
Just a little and try and peek in without.
Is there anything nearby, like heavy?
Sure, yeah. There's a brass bust.
Great.
Of an old settler.
Great.
Face. Yeah.
I'll just in case.
Okay. You lift the lid. It comes up freely because it's not nailed down. It's just been rested on the top. And as you lift it, you see, first of all, a hand that is kind of pressed up against it and kind of splays the fingers out over the edge of the coffin. It's white as a sheet with very distinct brown blood stains, as if the blood had kind of pooled or dripped around the hand. And then the fingers again move like this, lifting it up more, just enough so you can get a few inches of vantage on what's inside. You see a mess of a head, very distinct, like treading, as though it was run over by a car. I'd like you to roll insight, please, Sister Noelle.
As she's rolling, Leslie, under his breath, I have heard but not believed the spirits of the dead may walk again. For ne'er was dream so like waking.
That's a 5.
Okay, your insight goes up to a 3.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it
Let
does.
me make sure there's nothing else we need to do about that. Nope, that's about all. How would you like to roleplay that?
I mean, I think, I saw a little bit of the hand and I wasn't sure like what it was, so I kept going, and then once I hit the head, I think she sort of flings herself backwards, maybe crashes onto the floor. Mr. Hayes! Mr. Hayes! I think, oh my lord! I think Franklin perhaps is in there?
I think upon like being spooked by this and the sister like starting to freak out, he like shot puts this thing onto the top of the coffin. Like, it's all right. I'm sure there's a perfectly logical explanation for this. I'm
His head, tire tracks on his head. The car that Mr. Lawrence mentioned.
As that bust rests on the lid of the coffin, you hear a shifting like grains of sand or some other heavy, fine powder moving around inside the casket.
And I was going to say, I think Lawrence would have stayed downstairs, like poking around, like very much in the mindset of, if I could just find this thing, we can leave. And so as they traipse upstairs, but upon hearing that sort of unfold, would have run to the top of the stairs to see what was going on, and fearful of being left alone in the bottom of the house. So arriving just as all of this is sort of unfolding right there on the landing.
Yeah, and Lawrence, you can see around them, moving further down the hallway on that second floor, there is an open bedroom door, again, removed from the hinges. This one just laid out straight across the threshold of the room. Beyond it is a pretty untidy bedroom.
Well, I mean, this makes sense, right? Like, it makes sense, like, so, like, he didn't make it. It's not some kind of, why is everybody so...
There was a noise, Mr. Lawrence, there was a noise inside the coffin. I didn't make it up. Mr. Hayes, I didn't make it up.
I don't know. I don't know what you saw. I'm sure that a perfect trick of the light, perhaps. But there's that man is dead.
Is there any noise now that Lawrence can hear?
No noise right now.
So he'll like slowly kind of like lower his head towards the coffin, like kind of putting his ear down towards it. And then if he doesn't hear anything, he'll look up and say, well, maybe he hung on for like a day or two, right? And like bodies will move and stuff, right? Like after, like not like long after, but like soon after, right? Like that could be a thing. Maybe that's what you... Yeah, that's got to be it, right?
Perhaps I have read about rigor mortis and bodies moving about a little bit. Perhaps you're right.
Okay.
Duffy, as you go up those stairs, you can see now that sitting in a rocking chair with a pillow pulled up over her chest and knees is an 8-year-old girl, the one that you saw come out of the bulkhead.
I had my hand on my sidearm, but when I see this, I remove it and remove my hand. Kind of put my hands up and slowly approach. Hepzibah?
What do you want?
Hey, I'm a police officer, all right? And just here to help. Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Okay. I have some friends here, and we're just trying to help your brother.
You're gonna take him away?
No. Why would you think that?
Well, he's ready to go.
Okay.
He's in there in his box.
Oh, he is. He's in the box. Okay, makes sense. Why are you here alone? You have parents or?
I thought they were gonna come back, the ones with the masks. But you're not wearing a mask.
Duffy immediately thinks of the masks on the urns. Masks. Masks like happy face, sad face masks, like
Yeah,
that?
yeah, lots of them.
Lots of them. When did they come?
A couple days ago.
What'd they do?
They threw Daddy down the well.
Okay, Hepzibah.
You ain't seen it yet?
Seen what?
They gave him the sign.
No. What sign?
And she just looks out the window toward the front of the house.
I've been getting slowly closer the whole time.
Mhm.
Kind of looking where she's looking.
You can see she's looking down at the well.
Okay, Hepzibah. Hey, do you you shouldn't be alone here in this big house. Why don't you come with us, okay?
Well, Franklin's here.
Yeah, Franklin, like you said, he's on his way out, right?
I told you he's ready to go.
Sure. I'll call the and as I start to say it, I realize, oh shit, the coroner. And I'll make sure Franklin gets taken care of, okay? Why don't you
Okay.
Why don't we get you out of this house a little bit? Get some sunlight, get some food in you. That sound okay?
Yeah.
I reach out my hand to like let her take it.
She'll take your hand. She says, "Are you gonna get me some cherries, Jubilee?"
Yeah.
Franklin always said he was gonna bring me to the hotel there in Arkham and get me the cherries, Jubilee.
Oh, really? Hey, do you want to meet my friends?
Okay.
I think you'll like them. They know a lot more about Arkham than I do. And they all like Cherry's Jubilee, trust me. I'll start, like, walking with her down the hall, back down the stairs.
Yeah, she'll just kind of follow you along. You feel that she has a limp as she's walking beside you.
Can I, like, clock it and see what's going on? Is she injured, or is this, like...
Yeah. Roll an investigation. So this would just be... I'd say that fits within your occupation. So go ahead and roll 2 dice.
Okay. Oof, that's a 5.
Okay, yeah. You can see that the limp looks like an old injury. There's no like sign of her being currently injured, just something that didn't heal right, or yeah, that's probably from a young age, and it affects the way she walks. But yeah, it's just a little bit of a displacement of how she steps on her foot.
Okay.
Not anything like congenital, but like something happened. Like if someone breaks their foot at a young age and it doesn't set right, something like that.
I clock that as we're walking back down the hall and then like back down the stairs. Can I just take a note of this floor? Like, is there what I think maybe the case would be like in an office somewhere on this floor, or like
no office? You do see a master bedroom, and then back toward the others who are gathered around the coffin, there's an entrance to a pretty messy bedroom.
Okay. Am I on the third floor or the second floor?
You're on the third floor heading. Oh, I'm sorry. You were asking about the third floor.
Yeah.
The third floor is basically just like a half step up with a loft.
I see. Okay.
There's and like maybe the chair that she was sitting in and a bookshelf. Not much else.
Okay. I'll come back downstairs. Good.
I was before you reached us. I wanted to open the coffin one more time. I don't know when that's appropriate.
Yeah, how are you opening it?
I think
bust.
Yeah, we're all standing there together and trying to shake this off, and we're just gonna have to look at it, and that will ease our minds. Yes, right? This is a good idea. And he starts removing the bust. If it's Franklin, if he's dead, we can put this to rest. And I'm going to grab the lid of it and lift it.
Okay, when you lift it, you see that it is filled about 3/4 of the way with salt. The body, as I said before, you're kind of mentally prepared this time, so it's not quite a shock. But the head is really grievously injured to the point where like the skull's integrity is severely compromised. No one could have survived this. The chest, however, post-mortem has been cut open and the body filled with this salt, almost like you would fill a taxidermy specimen with sand.
That's not good. That's not. No. That's not.
Is it
Go ahead
moving?
and roll insight, Lawrence.
Yeah. So I rolled a 4, so that'll increase me up to 2. So immediately, like looking at the salt, like Lawrence begins to, and it's like a wave that begins to build up and move over him. And he's like, we've got to go. This is such a bad idea. I knew this was a bad idea. I should have listened to you guys can stay if you want. I'm going outside. We should not be here. I am telling you, and he turns and like perhaps stumbles a bit and has to catch himself on the banister as he tries to get himself out of the house as quickly as possible.
As you start that direction, everybody, I found someone, I was hoping maybe we could talk to her together. This is Hepzibah. These are my friends. Lawrence, you okay?
Lawrence is not. He's not going to stop till he gets outside. And because he's going to need a second to like, at the very least, like breathe in some fresh air and kind of, settle himself just a little.
Once Lawrence has left the house, she kind of looks over the coffin. She says, "Did he say hi?"
The dead cannot speak, child. Hepzibah, you remember me? Sister Noel, but you would have known me by the name Agatha?
Agatha?
I worked for your cousin's family.
She looks confused,
Very
like she
young.
probably doesn't remember.
Yeah. Child, the dead cannot speak. He hasn't spoken to you.
He's still there. He's ready to go.
Did you help him? How did he get ready?
Daddy filled him and put him in and got him ready to go. She's like, looks confused why this doesn't make sense to you.
Does he speak to you?
Hepzibah, after your daddy helped Franklin, how long was it before the and I kind of look at them, the masked men came and gave him the sign?
I don't know. A few days.
Okay.
Did you say masks? Masked men?
Yeah. She said that some masked men
Masks.
were here.
And Leslie approaches her and gets down on her level. Masks? What kind of masks?
Made out of like paper, cloth. They were different colors.
Yes.
Hepzibah, we're all gonna go get Cherry's Jubilee here in just a little bit, okay? But
Her face lights up.
But first, we need your help. Have you seen a blue case? Okay. Where'd you see it?
He took it down to the cellar.
Oh, okay.
Your father?
No, Franklin.
He was able to go down to the cellar?
Yeah.
When did your father get him ready?
When he came back.
Okay, well, maybe we go down to the cellar and we get it. Yeah. Then we can all leave.
Leslie heads downstairs, I think, first.
Once you get around, you have to kind of pass through the kitchen, and the cellar door is in the kitchen. You can see that there's a track of mud moving around the kitchen, like someone stepped in something, and it's actually coming up out of the cellar. So you would guess then that going down there's like a dirt floor, moist cellar down there. The door opens easily, and as you head down, you can see what look like several pieces of furniture. At first you think tables, and then as you get down and your eyes start to adjust, you can see the cellar is lined with beds. And lying in these beds are hardly recognizable human forms, badly decomposing. It would absolutely reek in here if not for the fact that the bodies are piled with salt.
Oh. I immediately cover Hepzibah and say, "Hey, Hepzibah, why don't you wait outside with our friend Lawrence?"
Oh, it's okay. They're all just down there ready.
Yeah, you
She kind of slips her hand out of yours and starts not skipping, but going down the steps without any sense of trepidation.
Let's retrieve the documents and go. Can you show me where the case is?
She leads you past about 8 of these beds. You can see that the linens are actually made up and done, probably laundered even, fairly recently, and then drawn up over just these absolutely ghastly forms. You can see, obviously, many of them are so decomposed to the point where they're just skeletons, but you can see bits of crusty flesh that have kind of sloughed off onto the bed over time. The whole place it's really like a terrible little charnel house. She leads you all the way back to the edge of the cellar where there's a bookshelf, and on the bookshelf are a number of old leather books, some handwritten pages kind of stuffed in amongst them, and then a blue bound writing case.
Grabbing the case, can I look at the rest of the books and papers for anything? What do I see?
Yeah, most of the books are unmarked, just simple leather or even just like thick paper stock bindings. But amongst that, like if you kind of pull out some of the loose pages, you can see what look like really hastily scrawled writing, talking about kill boxes. That's like the first word that pops out to you is kill box. As you do you continue looking it over?
Sure. Yeah, I would love to.
You see the phrase, "No one wishes to live." And then as you keep reading, you start to digest a little bit like what is actually being said. This seems to be a description of some kind of decadent cityscape in which the streets are lined with something called kill boxes, where people who have lost the will to live routinely stroll into them. They pull a chain and a poisonous gas is emitted and they end their lives. And it's described with horror, much as you would describe it, but the horror seems to be more at the fact that people are unwilling to persevere, which is really like kind of an offensive, like I don't know how Leslie would feel about it, but it's this really like judgmental kind of attitude toward that. You really get the sense that these are kind of mad scribblings, and it talks about this as though it's something that is going to happen and it is inevitable, almost like someone looking back on a history and commenting on the culture of the time. It's like looking ahead and commenting on the culture of the future. It mentions an heiress of great fortune named Mercy Clyde, who lives in Ipswich and will receive many guests of the king. And then the last section talks about how the desire to die must be curtailed by those whose will is strong enough to see the king in yellow when he comes. And with that, I would like you to make an insight roll.
Yeah. Oh no. It's a 3.
Okay, your insight goes up to 2. And yeah, good.
No. Sorry. So mine goes up to 2.
Mm-hmm.
And upon kind of scrambling through this and reading specifically there at the end, he starts thumbing through it all again and looking on the shelves for more information, as muttering under his breath, "I wear no mask. I wear no mask. I wear no mask. I wear no mask." And like searching through some of these things before he turns to the girl and grabs her and says, "The King in Yellow. Do you know the King in Yellow?"
What?
The king. Does it mean anything?
I don't know.
Who wrote this?
You're bothering me.
Who wrote this?
Hayes,
And she starts crying.
Cool it. What? It's okay. So, hey, we're gonna get some cherries jubilee in just a little bit here, okay?
Okay.
Oh, child. Oh, and can I try and like, how big is an 8-year-old child? I'll try and sort of scoop her up and.
Sure.
You're frightening the child, Mr. Hayes, and try and escort her away from the body as well.
Yeah.
Begging.
As you move by the beds, you hear come from one of them.
Do we hear that or just her?
Oh, you all hear it.
Okay. I immediately reach for my sidearm and kind of move myself between the women, the ladies, and the bed. Can I tell which person it is?
Yeah, you can see there's a form. The sheets are very subtly moving up and down.
I'm gonna reach my hand out slowly and start pulling the sheet kind of back off of the face.
Mm-hmm. You see a face that is essentially mummified, covered in sand. The sand is pouring out of the mouth, the eyes, the nose. The coughing is coming from this sand, which is interrupting the...
The hell?
Mr. Valdez, I think we need to leave.
Oh, you go. I'm a little drawn in by this, I think.
You keep moving the sheet down further and further until just under the sternum, the body stops in kind of a mangle toss of guts and what looks like dead flesh that never needed to heal.
Would I think, with my investigation into the coroner's department, does it seem to me that, like, these bodies were given to, like, this family from, like, they were dead people from the coroners who were, like donated here? Or is it, like, not related, or is it
I think it's
backwards?
hard to tell.
Okay.
It does look like they've been here a very long time.
Okay.
But as you reveal that breathing body with no legs, no abdomen, just ends below the rib cage, roll insight, please.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Has anyone grabbed the blue writing case? Okay.
I imagine I'd hand it off to somebody while I was looking through stuff.
I got
To
a
whom?
2, so goes up to a 2. Is that right?
Okay. Yep. Your insight is now 2. You hand it off to whom?
I think I have the blue writing case and the girl, and I'm trying to hustle my way out of here.
Right. Yep. You rush up the stairs, and all of you are able to leave the house and its horrors behind. And with that, we will go into a short break.
All right. Hey, okay.
We'll see you all in about
Booby.
5-10 minutes.
Cool.
Welcome back. We return with our game of Cthulhu Dark. Had a little break to diffuse a little bit of that tension that was building as our investigators were exploring the Meach Place farm and uncovering a few people who just hadn't quite left this world. You rush out of the farmhouse with the blue writing case in hand, also clasping the hand of Hepzibah Meach, who seems unconcerned about the bodies below, but is very anxious to go with you and get some Cherries Jubilee in Ipswich. In the car, as you drive away, you're able to sift through some of the things that you recovered. The first is that Hepzibah will mention one more time the people in the masks, but this time she refers to them with a name. She calls them the Gold Gate, which must be some kind of organizational title or group moniker. You sense there's more there to uncover. You also hold in your hands the writing case that contains the research you were hired to obtain. It's got a pile of papers and notes and one or two original documents that look like they're a couple hundred years old. You were able to see the coffin. One detail that I didn't mention is that the coffin had a little inscription along the bottom, which said Donlow and Hayes Funerary Service. I think both Sister Noel and Officer Valdez would recognize that as a funerary home that's in Ipswich, so you could go looking for some more answers there.
Sure.
You didn't really uncover much else, so now it's up to you to, with the things you gathered, figure out what's happening.
I just want to make a point of order real quick. As we left, I definitely would have taken my flashlight and shown it down in the well just to see if I would see a body down there.
Yeah, roll for that investigation.
Okay.
So let's see. I think in this case 2 dice is appropriate.
All right. Oh, that's a 6.
Okay. That's so perfect.
It is.
You shine your flashlight down and you immediately see the body of Oberyn Meach. He's distinct in the way he dressed. Maybe he was known for wearing a certain pinstriped overall set. And you can see the legs kind of protruding up just as well as you can see his head cracked against the side of the well. On his person, clasped in a hand right up here next to his throat, you can see the glint of gold.
Okay.
And you see flies, just like they were before, buzzing all around the mouth of the well.
That image is stained in Duffy's mind the entire drive back. Never mind. That's not an insight. Okay, we're good. Never mind.
Must apologize for my outburst. I don't know what came over me. I hope you will all forgive me.
What is that? What'd you say back there? The king?
The king in yellow. Yes. I came across a strange, interesting, honestly, dramatic text, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, but I can't seem to get my hands on a copy.
It's because it's been banned.
So I've been told. We have an interesting sense of censorship here. I'm not sure why it might be banned.
We're heading back, right? We're going back to Arkham now. Like, we're gonna go back to Arkham. We're gonna hand off whatever it is you guys pulled out of that house, and we're done, right? This is it.
I suppose I could make a trip to Arkham. Yeah, if that's what
It's
we
what
need
we
to do.
it's what we all got. It's like that's what we were told to do, right? Like, that's what we got told to do. That's what we should do. We've retrieved the document. We got the thing. We should take it back now. We should just be done with it, right?
I mean, I guess I can't just walk away. There's a dead body in the bottom of that well. There's a bunch of dead bodies in the cellar. I have a duty to uphold here, and quite frankly, there's some weird shit going on here. Excuse my language, sister. Apologies.
I mean, what those people need is a priest, someone to administer last rites, to be buried.
Hepzibah says suddenly, "They're not dead. Why do you make everything dead?"
What are you all talking about? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's like Franklin? We talk about Franklin?
Are we? Where are we right now?
In the car.
In the car.
It's
Okay.
like just rolling down the road.
There's more, right? There's more. There's more. It's how
In the
many more?
basement. In the basement, there was. Oh, how many? 10, 12?
Okay.
Hepzibah, what do you mean? They're not dead. I mean, yes, we saw that one moving.
Uncle Peter.
What?
Uncle Peter. You took his blanket off and you didn't put it back.
That was,
Are all of them your family?
They're all ready.
Ready for what, child?
They're ready to go.
To go
where?
where, child?
I don't know. That's what Daddy always said. That when the bodies are hurt, they get ready to go.
The salt that was in your brother's coffin. Where's that salt come from?
Well, they got it from the Golden Gate.
Golden Gate. Okay. You know where they got it from?
That's where we go to church.
Okay.
They're on Sundays?
Yeah, we go to the big tent and we listen to them talk. And then I wait with the other kids and they all go down
down
to church.
right.
Grandpa,
Okay.
do I know anything about this church? Is this a...
Yeah, let's see. I think in this case, this would be an insight roll.
Mhm.
So you would, or essentially you're making, you could do one die for your occupational expertise, and then your second die, if you want to make this roll, would be an insight, as you're risking your sanity to know something about this.
Yeah, I would love to risk my sanity, Grant.
Risk it.
Highest die is a 5, and the insight die was a 4.
Okay. Great. So the insight die is not higher than any other die rolled, so you don't need to roll insight. And with the 5, you succeed well.
So do I add to my insight still?
No, not in this case.
Okay.
The insight die is the one that you're adding to try and roll higher, and if it rolls higher than any other die, say the 5 was with the insight die, then you would roll insight to see if it increases.
Got it.
So in this case, you are aware of this small, it's kind of like a tent revival sect that visits some of the farms out here. Maybe they've shown up in Ipswich a little bit, but it's probably more due to your time spent out on the farms than it is any time in the actual abbey. But the Gold Gate Tent Revival is a religious group that they don't have like one particular place of worship as far as you know, that they kind of move around. But yeah, a country sect, and you can know a little bit extra. So you know that they perform what they call baptisms, and that they're always done underground, and that they talk about people being ready for this kind of sacrament that they experience. As far as you know, it's a Christian sect. Based on what she's saying, however, it sounds like they have some involvement at least. You know that maybe at the Historical Society once, they recovered a mask that was used in a particular pageant done by the Goldgate Tent Revival about 50 years ago. Someone maybe auctioned it, or it was left somewhere and recovered by the Historical Society, and they have a little case where it's kind of displayed. And the mask is actually made out of genuine silk, golden silk.
So I'll relay that. I believe a Christian sect, but certainly not the one true church, and perhaps not even a Christian sect. Child, do you believe in the Savior?
In the what?
Jesus Christ?
She just kind of shrugs. Is he the king?
Yes, child, yes, he is the king.
Oh, yeah.
Where are we going to take her?
Perhaps the Abbey? We take in children. I joined, certainly not as young as her, but young.
Yeah, that's a good call. I definitely have to, I need to get on the phone with my captain at some point, or swing by at least and just... There's a bunch of bodies there. I, again, can't just leave that untouched. Lawrence, just give me a couple hours in Ipswich, and then we'll make the drive to Arkham, yeah?
Okay. Yeah, the least amount of time I gotta spend in the city, no offense, better off I feel like I'm gonna be.
I'm with you, honestly. I'd leave if I could.
While they talk, I have been in possession of the blue notebook, and I'm going to open it and start investigating.
Great. So you recognize the hand of Professor Pruitt, who is apparently taking notes from various sources. You kind of leaf through, and it looks like a description of the settlement of Ipswich, and then specifically it mentions another place, which it describes as about 20 miles west of Gloucester. So, further east of Ipswich, past the salt flats that kind of flank the coast. And it's like kind of a portrait of this 18th century settlement. And in that writing, there is a page kind of stuck between those pages of notes that looks like a very old leaf, and it is some kind of historical, maybe a journal page or something, and it pretty vividly describes an event that took place where in 1730 a colonist whose name is left out of the narrative spoke with a figure in a yellow silken mask and transcribed their dialogues with this person. And those dialogues were eventually worked into a pageant that was performed in the village. And this is all written from the perspective of people afterward who were kind of piecing together events. And so the point of view of the document is not necessarily in favor of what's going on, but it's kind of a dry recollection. And this pageant seemed to involve people wearing masks, people using salt in various rituals that was gathered from the salt flats. And as the pageant continued to be performed, people in the town seemed to experience a degeneration of morals. They slowly but surely became more raucous, more violent, and eventually the settlement that was west of Gloucester just completely devolved into chaos, madness, and there was eventually kind of like mob conflict that ended in a huge number of people dying. And that's kind of where the recollection ends. There is a little sketch on another page of these notes that shows an upside down torch, and the flame from the torch is kind of spiraling or circling up the kind of shaft of the torch, which is pointing down. So it's burning itself.
Do we know what research Dr. Pruitt was working on? What is this?
What is what? And Lawrence will just kind of inquire as to what you may have discovered there in the case.
And I'll show some of the image of the torch and describe this this settlement descending into a mob and consuming itself as the torch consumes itself.
Yeah, I would imagine as that information gets relayed, like as we get start to discuss the location of the settlement and its relation to like where it was in the salt fields, Lawrence's demeanor he completely sort of shrivels in and hangs his head, and is perhaps silent for a moment or two, and then he'll kind of very weakly say, when I was still a student at Miskatonic, I was in the archaeology program. As far as I know, Pruitt is in the lore and folklore and mythology, but there's a lot of overlap between our departments. But I never worked with him specifically. But we came up to Ipswich and we were conducting a dig out in the salt flats. We were looking for a colonial settlement. I imagine we were looking for the settlement that's detailed there in those papers. We were supposed to just find artifacts, pieces of clothing, right? Like utensils, whatever, just whatever remnants were there. But we were there, and the students, we were digging, and there was laborers, and one of us found a body. And then another person found a body, and then a third person found a body, and a fourth person found a body. There wasn't any clothes, there was no artifacts, it was just bodies stacked underneath the salt out there. And we all stopped. We knew in that moment we should stop. But the professors, they kept pushing. They were like, no, this is important. This is a discovery. This is going to put Miskatonic on the map. They're going to be talking about us the world over. But we wouldn't go back out there. And there was a lot of heat and a lot of pushback. And the long story short, the university came in, shut the whole thing down. But I was there. I was there with like 1 or 2 other people. The last night we were tasked with kind of cleaning up the camp, getting everything cleared out. We heard voices. We heard voices coming from the salt clear as day. And we all got spooked and we ran. And we didn't check to see if each other were okay. We all just ran and got in vehicles. Because I've never driven that fast in my life. But as the car I was in was tearing across the salt flats. There were hands coming out of the salt. They were grabbing at the tires of the car. And it wasn't my imagination. I know it wasn't my imagination because every one of them, they thumped as I ran over them. And the car jerked left because the car jerked right. It was... Whatever the hell this is, we ought to leave it well enough alone. I'm convinced the only reason I am still here breathing is because I listened to my intuition that night, and I am telling all of you that we should do the same right now and walk as fast as we can away from this.
Thump! Suddenly the car jerks with a big lurch as you drive over some kind of beam or log that has been laying across the road, and you realize it too late. As the front wheels go over it, you hear a squeal and a crunch as the back wheels then hit the log, and the car kind of peels out and kicks up a bunch of dust as you slam on the brakes.
Was it a body?
Oh, is everybody okay? I'm gonna open the door and look back at the road. It was a log?
A log. Oh, Lord.
Jeez.
Yeah, you can see there were several kind of sharp places where maybe branches were once growing out of it, but they've been cut very clearly with a blade, maybe a hatchet or something. Your tires have been punctured.
Did we come on this road? This is the road we took to get to the farm, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, I keep having freaking problems on this road. This morning I nearly crashed into a goat. I'm gonna walk over towards the log. I'm gonna try to move it. I don't know if I'm even like strong enough. I'm gonna be like, try to like move it out of the road just so nobody else like runs over it.
Yeah, sure. Make a in this case, you can roll with 1 die, and if you want to risk yourself, you can roll with 2.
I don't think he would care too much about risking himself, but I'm also like, why not?
So as you pick up the log, you can see that you're standing on a big spill of salt that goes across the dirt road. Looking down at it, you, for a moment, consider what might be beneath. And as you get down closer, you feel your hands brush against the salt, and there's a tingle as of something moving or applying upward pressure against the bottom of your hand as you lift the log up. What was your roll?
I got a 6, and my insight was a 3.
Okay.
My insight die.
And your insight currently is 2?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, with a 6, you succeed in getting the log up. As you pull it up, however, you can see that there's something trailing underneath your hand. You lift it, hoist it, move it off the road, but there are like ribbons or bands of some kind of dark substance trailing underneath the back of your hand as you're moving it. And as the rest of you look over at Officer Valdez, you can see he's kind of moving his hand as if to wave whatever this is off, like a cobweb, perhaps. And as he moves his hand, it's like the hand trails this shadow. And in that shadow, you see gleaming stars of gold, like fairy dust.
Some kind of oil or something on me. I just keep trying to get it off, I suppose.
Yeah. Eventually it kind of dissipates and stops.
Okay.
What?
How close are we to other like where are we?
About
Officer
5
Valdez?
miles out of Ipswich.
These how do we have? How many tires are popped?
2 of 4.
How many
I've
spare
only got
tires?
one spare. We're gonna have to walk.
What time is it?
It is. You gathered in the afternoon, so it's probably about 4 o'clock.
If we get a move on now, we should be able to get in before sundown, I would think.
Who put this here?
I don't know. Someone with...
He goes over and kicks the salt, like, to scatter it.
The salt scatters, revealing dirt underneath it.
Lawrence is. Go ahead.
I'm gonna sort of grip Hepzibah on the arm a little too tightly. Hepzibah, child, is there anyone else on the farm? Someone who could move this? Someone alive?
No one on the farm. I think
Anyone
it was.
in the
I
forest?
think it was the masked people.
The masked people, the people of the
Yeah.
Golden Gate.
Yeah, whenever we talk about it, they come.
Well, then perhaps best not to talk about it at all. And I'll start dragging her down the road, and I am hustling, and I'm just hoping everyone follows.
Leslie's kind of standing at the back as people walk away and looking around before everyone hears him shout out into the wilderness at whoever's listening. I charge thee hence. Do not haunt me thus. And like waiting to see if something happens or somebody comes out.
There's nothing, just the distant croak of a raven.
Grab a pile of salt and can I stick it in my suit jacket pocket?
Duffy does one more inspection of the car, grabs anything he needs out of it, kind of kicks the tire, cursing, maybe grabs the blue case if nobody else has and tosses it to Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence will grab and immediately head off after Sister Noelle. Like, whatever we need to do to get as far away from here as possible, that's Lawrence's aim at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you continue down the road. The sun just slowly recedes, gets lower in the sky. You're starting to see a bit of fog roll in, obscuring your vision beyond maybe 30 feet. And as you're traveling, you start to hear something high-pitched but low, and you realize after a moment that Hepzibah is singing.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of idly, not any purpose behind it, but she's singing. And Sister Noelle recognizes this as a tune that's popped up a lot. The locals seem to keep this traditional song close at hand whenever they're singing folk melodies. The song is called 3 Ravens, and it tells the story of ravens who feast upon the body of a soldier and later in the song, a pregnant doe arrives, licks the wounds of the soldier, heaves him up on her back, and then buries him. And shortly after burying him, the doe dies in giving birth to her calf, fawn, and that is the end of the song. It's kind of a dreadful, sad song.
If you'd like to sing, child, perhaps a hymn. There's so many good ones. Mr. Hayes, are you familiar with the hymns? I'm sure you're familiar with the vaudevillian tunes, but perhaps something more holy, something sacred about our Lord?
Not one with voice for singing. No, I don't at vaudeville or hymns or the like. I worship in my way.
Well, perhaps I'll sing a hymn. Mr. Lawrence or Mr. Valdez, if you care to join, and she'll pick what's a good old-fashioned hymn? My hymnal's so different. Perhaps just Amazing Grace. I don't know. And start sort of singing, trying to cover up Hepzibah. Hepzibah, child, do you know this one? You must know this one.
She looks at you quite blankly.
Duffy has pulled out his flashlight and taken the lead just to kind of see through the fog.
Sure. Duffy, go ahead and roll just one die, unless you want to roll an insight die as well. This is for your navigation as it's starting to get dimmer.
I'll roll an insight die too.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's do it. My insight was higher than the other one, so I got a 5 on my insight and a 4 on my regular die.
Okay. So with a 4, you managed to succeed competently in guiding in the right direction toward Ipswich. Go ahead and roll your insight.
I roll it again.
Yeah, so because your insight die was the highest, you have to roll insight now to see if your insight goes up. You're at 3, correct?
I'm at 2.
Oh, you're at 2, okay.
I rolled a 5.
Okay, so your insight goes up to 3.
Okay.
How this manifests is that you are keeping very good lookout, making sure you're staying on the road. But what you're seeing on the side are old tents now start to rise up, and they paint a very vivid picture of what was in your mind as you heard about this tent revival church. You can see that the tents are painted a kind of faded, sickly yellow.
Hey. These weren't here before. This is the road, though. This is the way back. Duffy's kind of putting on a false confidence at the moment. Let's just keep moving. We're almost
How
there.
these new churches just pop up and solicit people through all sorts of charismatic and performance oriented, just popping up out of the ground. Hurry, child, and she'll just keep hustling through. Is there anyone actually around these tents? Any movement?
You don't see any signs of people. They look like possibly abandoned prior encampments. You can see on one side there's like a whole row of metal chairs set up that were never taken down.
New churches.
Devil can cite scripture for his purpose. Sort of muttering to himself. How close are the tents to the road? And the chairs and things?
10 yards.
Oof. I guess as we continue walking, Leslie walks off the road to sort of peer in one of these tents or open the flap if necessary.
Well, you can see that there are no people in here. There's a little wooden stage that was mostly dismantled, maybe just kind of the foundation of whatever was left behind. You also see on the ground there is a kind of slightly bent or crumpled leaflet, on the front of which is depicted a gold cloth mask.
Not unlike the one that we've heard about in the writings.
Right.
Anything else on the leaflet of note?
Well, do you pick it up?
Oh yeah. That was my pant.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was looking at my notes. So,
that's okay.
So yeah, as you pick it up, you kind of thumb through it, and you can see very clearly printed on it is the Gold Gate Tent Revival. The tract that you're looking at advertises services, only the year that's written is 1951. As you turn another page, you can see that there's a depiction of a silver sky with black motes that look like they're in a star pattern, like constellations, but they're dark.
The date is 1951.
Yes,
The current date is
1931.
right. Just confirming. It's the golden. It's the Gold Gate. Something's not right with this. I think they've made some kind of an error showing.
It reminds me. Well, at the time I thought it was just a mistake, but it reminds me. The Meaches, they said they had attended mass at the church. They had a memory of attending mass, they said, in 1989. But of course that's not possible. I assumed they meant 1889. They were certainly old enough that was likely.
When was this? When did they tell you this?
When I worked on their farm years ago now, the cousins of the Meaches here. It's not possible. God made the world according to a certain way.
I don't know what you're all going on about here. It's a typo. Look, I mean, there was some crazy stuff back at that house for sure, but I don't know what it has to do with an old book that's banned, and let's get back to town. Let's just keep walking. Yeah.
Leslie, are you continuing to look around? Seemed like you were the one who was most drawn to what's going on.
Yeah, I think I would have passed that on and then kind of gone back through and any other pamphlets, leaflets, things on the ground. Probably tread the boards of the stage for a moment.
As you tread the boards of the stage, you step on one that is loose, and you realize that there's nothing holding it down, and you can easily pull it aside, and it reveals a staircase.
Into the earth.
Yeah, down below the stage, it looks like something that was dug. Yeah, you can see bracing beams along kind of a corridor that head underground.
There's something here. It's not a typo.
We should just leave it where it is, though. We should not. What did you like? Come on, just get out of the tent and let's just get on the road and head back
If the first man and the first woman had not been seduced by the promise of knowledge, then we would still be in an Edenic state. And I think I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Lawrence that it's best not to investigate. Surely this is where they might have their baptisms for nefarious, perhaps satanic purposes.
Ignorance is the curse of God. Knowledge is the wing wherewith we fly to heaven, yes?
What is
The book you were talking about?
The book? The King in Yellow.
Have you read the book, Mr. Hayes?
I have only had the opportunity to peruse it. I tried to check it out of a library, and everyone I've spoken to about it seems to have the same response. It's banned. Don't speak to me about it ever again.
At Miskatonic, there are whispers among students about that book, about people that find themselves in insane asylums in Paris, in London, before it was banned. What you're talking about is crazy, Mr. Hayes. We're walking back to town.
I mean, with all due respect, you wouldn't be the first person to lump artists and thespians into the category of the insane. It's a play. It's fascinating. It's beautiful. I can't get the words just burned into my brain, and there's something here. There's something more.
Can I look to Hepzibah? Go over to her, kind of gesture towards this tent and towards the stage and whatnot. And Hepzibah, have you ever been here before? Have you ever seen this before?
This is just like the other tents we went to, yeah.
And did you ever see anybody go down the stairs?
Yeah, I stayed with all the kids up here, and all the parents went down to get baptized.
Baptized by the men, the masks, yes?
Yeah.
Look, Mr. Hayes, I'm a bit inclined to agree with you, and there's like, these tents came up out of nowhere. They could be gone if we try to come back. This could be our only chance to check out this clue. At the same time, I am not about to put this little girl at risk, and we have. I don't want to bite off more than we can chew here.
It seems perhaps someone waits.
Take this, and Sister Noelle will hand you her rosary. Sinner though you may be, it's still best to have a sign of the cross down there.
I welcome it. There's a bit of eagerness, I think, in Mr. Hayes right now.
Shit. You really going?
He starts going down the stairs. You can wait if you wish.
I look towards Lawrence and Noelle.
I'll stay with the child.
Yeah. All right. I can't let him go down there alone.
We'll stand on the stage, right? We'll be right there by the opening. We'll stand by the stage. If you need anything, you just say something, right? Like we're not going anywhere, but
right. I unclasp my sidearm and just pull it out, have it ready. Kind of tap the blue case in Lawrence's arms and just be like, "You keep that safe." And I'll follow Hayes down.
And as we go, thank you, detectives. Have some company. I don't know what it is that's pulling me, other than these words. These song of my soul. My voice is dead. Die, thou unsung, and tears unshed shall dry and die in lost Carcosa. It's Shakespeare himself quite has moved me, has formed me with his words, but nothing quite explains what
I gotta be honest, Hayes, two things. Number one, when you start spouting off stuff like that, I don't know, I can't tell if that's Bible verses, if that's Shakespeare, if it's this King in Yellow stuff. I don't know what you're talking about. The second thing is, I'm not technically a detective, okay? I'm an officer. I'm a cop. I like that you call me detective. Makes me feel a little cooler, I suppose. I just wanted you to know.
Inspector, perhaps?
Nah,
Inspector Valdez.
let's go with detective.
Detective Valdez. Truth, I must admit, it's not been easy for me here in this, this country. The dramatic tradition is, I find it lacking. It just turns and starts going down.
I give you my flashlight, by the way.
Great.
So by the light of the flashlight or torch, you navigate through this tunnel braced like a mine shaft by heavy wooden beams. When it ends about 50 feet down into the darkness, you can feel it's obviously quite cold now under here. It's also an autumn night or autumn evening, so it however is not damp as you might expect it to be underground. In fact, there's a distinct chalky kind of texture in the air, and you can feel it on your tongue. And it's explained as soon as you emerge from the end of this tunnel, because you've entered a kind of circular chamber with clay walls that have been kind of fashioned against the bare earth. And the floor of this chamber is completely covered in ash. You think if you set your foot in it, it would probably go up to your knees. The passage continues on the other side of this roughly circular charnel ash pit.
We have to walk through the pit to get to the other side?
Hello?
You still want to go forward? Is this...
And he kind of just gonna put one foot in on the shallowest part and see how far it goes.
Your foot strikes something underneath that ash, and kind of turning it up with your toe, you see just the bare part of an eye socket and a forehead plate.
Bones?
Yep.
Yeah.
What the hell is this place?
On the roof of is this like a cavern?
It's not a natural cavern. It was clearly dug.
Sure. Signs of fire?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do they say? Baptized by fire?
Ahead, as you keep moving foot by foot, you can see that there's a bit of a mask, one of those golden silk masks stretched over a hard piece of paper or plaster or something to give it that, very shapely human face proportion. It's just lying kind of half buried in the ash.
I'm gonna take that one out and shake it. And look at it.
Looks like a piece of a costume.
He's gonna hang on to it. Turn around and detective a clue.
Guess Hepzibah was right. They really did wear masks, huh?
All kinds of masks, he said. These are all the gold ones.
Yeah.
I'm not misremembering that, right, Graham? She said
Yeah,
different.
that's right.
Okay. She said colors and different things.
So, the members were wearing these masks, and then what? Burned alive down here?
You're
Just keep moving.
Okay. Moving through, you enter another area which has similarly been widened out. At the far end, in the flashlight beam, you think you see what looks like rigging or ropes kind of coming down from the ceiling area. And as you keep scanning around, you see what looks like a small wooden stage with counterweights placed on the sides and a very badly tarnished red velvet curtain that has been drawn up.
Yeah, immediately Leslie Hayes recognizes this for what it is and runs up to be on the stage.
Please tell me there's not a staircase onto this one.
Sort of stamps around a little bit, not unlike the first stages of my career. A little shabby, yes, but all you need. One stage, one man.
So wait, what is this?
It's obviously some sort of theater. The acoustics. You could, how big's the room?
Maybe 25 feet wide.
Great. Rattles off some Macbeth.
As you are kind of, strutting and fretting about the stage, your foot catches something crisp and crunchy, and you look down, and there's a sheaf of paper, like a whole stack of parchment paper.
I'll pick them up. Bring them down to show them as well.
Yeah, the first thing you read is, along the shore the cloud waves break, the twin suns sink beneath the lake, the shadows lengthen in Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise.
And I start turning the pages.
What'd you find?
This is a rehearsal copy of what you recognize as the King in Yellow.
Yes.
It only has about half of the lines. The other half must be kept on another copy. But you can see snatches of dialogue from one side that say, you, sir, should unmask. Indeed, it's time. We've all laid aside disguise but you. And then with a little stage direction that says, terrified, aside to Casilda, the dialogue says, no mask. No mask.
No mask. No mask. This is it. This is, well, it's most of it. It's some of it. This is the King in Yellow. I mean, I want to look around.
That's it. That's what's down here.
At least part of it, and scouring around on the stage elsewhere, underneath, in the wings, looking at their pulley systems.
Okay, roll an investigation, and
Great. While
while you're doing that, let's jump back to Sister Noelle and Lawrence, who are up underneath the tent. You can still see the evening sky just outside. As you're looking up, there's a sensation of bright light, as if someone has just turned on a massive torchlight or moonbeam, and the sky has become this alabaster curtain, like a photo negative. You can see stars, not just in the sky, but rising slowly and gathering. The stars, though, are dark, like motes of inky void moving amidst this alabaster sky. Please roll insight. Yep. For a moment, you have this sensation that you're on a moving globe and you can feel the turning of the earth as if gravity is somehow disrupted.
I rolled a 5, so that brings me up to 4.
Okay.
I rolled a 6. That brings me to 3.
So as you feel yourself rolling back and you feel almost as though you might fall off the face of the world, a ribbon of black goes across that silver sky, just like the ribbon that was trailing behind Officer Valdez's arms. And it just paints a huge swath of the sky in darkness. And within that swath, you think you see a layer of stars behind the sky. And you see black towers and domes rising up, and a moonrise. This moon that is absolutely massive rises in front of the city. So you see the horizon, but somehow, in a strange way that makes no geometric sense, the moon rises in front of this domed tower.
Sister Noelle has been very careful not to sort of touch anyone, touch a man. But at this moment, she grips onto Lawrence and sort of shakes him. Mr. Lawrence, what is this? Do you have any idea?
And in that moment, I feel like Lawrence is actually quite calm, not quite as panicked, and may mutter out loud without thinking, considering his own upbringing. Sister, what does the Bible say happens to those of us who are not baptized?
Lawrence, tell me you've been baptized.
Family's never been very, very religious, sister. I don't. Here, you and the girl. Let's go under. I've no idea what that is, but we can't. I don't.
Hide from the sight of the stars, and she'll start going down the stairs. She's being pretty rough with Hepzibah and kind of flinging the child down.
And Lawrence at this point I think will follow after, frightened and to some degree almost childlike, just kind of maybe sobbing softly to himself now, just utterly convinced, I think, that he's not going to make it out of here.
May God have mercy on your soul, Lawrence. May God have mercy on your soul, you evil child, evil family. He's booking it down.
You hardly hear Hepzibah as she protests being dragged down the stairs, and she says, "I'm not old enough. I'm not ready." But you hurtle down the staircase, through the passage, and into the ash pit that lies between you and your friends. Stepping into the ash, the first thing you notice is that you're about knee deep in human remains. There's a tingle along your legs as though what you're stepping in knows that you're there and only lacks the musculature to respond. Those of you who are in the theater look back and you see your friends stepping into the ash pit. But between you and your friends, there's another figure standing there. The figure is motionless, but there's a sense of focus shift where suddenly this figure has descended without moving at all. And the whole room, like a two-dimensional puppet show, slides into place, and a cloaked figure in a golden silk mask is just standing kind of hunched, head sagging down, with the hood making that, that kind of classic hunched shape.
Freeze! Stay right there. Put my sidearm up.
And I'll halt Valdez and call out to it. You, sir, should unmask.
The stranger says, "Indeed."
Indeed. It's time. We have all laid aside disguise but you.
The head begins to slowly turn up and the hand raise. And as the hand raises, you can see, again, kind of like sliding into your vision without actually moving, is an upside down torch. And as it does, it blazes with fire, which then swirls in a spiral shape in almost like a perverse reversal of the serpent on the staff that Moses bore. And the torch begins to consume itself as this golden yellow emblem of the upside down torch burns in front of you. And the figure says, "I wear no mask." What you see coming out of the hood is not human. It looks like a putty or a sticky jelly that begins to float in globs out from the opening of the mask, stretching this sinuous goo between the globs and whatever lies within the hood. The hand that has raised now begins to drip down, almost like puppet strings or a yo-yo descending from the hand. And this kind of purple, almost dark blue color overtakes all of the form beneath that cloak that you can see. And with that, I would like you all to roll insight.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if we roll the number?
Good question. Let me double check. So if you roll the number, then you do not have to add one. You succeed in effect.
Okay.
I rolled the number, so I'm still at 4.
Okay.
Moved up. I rolled a 4, so I'm up to 3.
I rolled a 1, so I'm still at 3.
Okay.
Also the 3.
Great. There's no immediate adverse effect from this. But as this,
We're all like, how?
this formless thing begins to emerge from beneath the cloak, you can see the cloak itself kind of ripples and starts to descend to the ground. Sister Noelle, you're standing on something underneath that ash pile that now begins to move. You feel like this kind of almost a strong convulsion or wave of pressure come up, and you realize that what your foot is touching is a body.
I try and throw myself forward, trying to get out of the ash, and as I do, I'm kind of screaming like, God, why have you forsaken me? And I'm trying to get to like the other side of the room where I might not be standing on dead bodies, perhaps.
Behind you, as you look back at what you just left, you can see a black cowl, which reveals itself to be a habit, emerge. There is a corpulent white face with pressed lines and bulbous texture, like the texture of a grave worm underneath the habit.
And is there any way that I know this face?
Roll insight. As you look.
That's a 6, baby.
Okay. The face is not recognizable at the moment because it's so decomposed and swollen that it's almost dripping. The hand, however, is holding aloft a golden talisman or pin, like a brooch maybe, that is in the symbol of the yellow sign. So that upside down torch with the swirling flame. And the flopping gelatinous mouth of this dead, decomposing thing says, "Have you seen the yellow sign?" Leslie, beside you on the stage, you feel an arm slip around your waist. There is a figure in a dashing tuxedo, kind of wrapping his arm around your waist and spins you out. And you look at the face, and please roll insight as a similar grave-wormed texture figure stares back at you, inches away.
4.
Okay.
So
So
I'm
does
up
your
to
insight
4. Yeah.
goes up to 4?
Mhm.
The face you see is your own. Staring back at you, a winning grin and a puffed chest as the figure says, "When will we dance?"
And immediately, I think this kind of snaps him out of this realization of the Yellow King and try to shove away. Hell is empty, and all the devils are here. And can I get away from it?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yeah, you
Push
feel its sagging arm kind of slip off of your waist as you run back. Officer Valdez, where in the room are you standing at near the stage?
I think I'm like just between the stage and this monster looking thing. Yeah. I think when this thing starts dropping shadow ink, I shoot it. I'm pulling the trigger at least twice.
Okay. Roll 2 dice.
Six.
That's not good, my friend. Your aim is very good, but your shot goes straight through the figure and into Lawrence.
Yeah.
Lawrence, the bullet strikes you, and as it blows through your abdomen, you can feel a warm, wet sensation as blood pools around your hand, down the front of your pants. And yet, that's not the most terrifying thing that you experience. You feel the grasp of hands reaching up along your shoes into the pant legs against your bare skin, and these freezing, cold, mushy fingers contract and grasp at your ankles. They're coming up from the ash.
Okay. Do you want me to roll an insight for that as well?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Would
I was
I
going to
have...
give you a chance to say what you're doing in response, but...
Okay. So I rolled a 2, so I'm keeping it together.
Mhm.
So I think in this moment, where is Hepzibah in relation to all of us?
She's
At this
standing
moment.
back. She has not entered the ash heap. She somehow
Okay.
slipped the grasp of Sister Noelle before you entered.
Okay, so in this moment, with the hands and evoking these very distinct memories, one of the things that stuck with him from those years back at the dig site was the way that the 2 or 3 people that were there at camp that night all fled with no concern for one another, and he felt a great deal of shame in that, and he holds on to that shame and turns and starts to try and make his way towards the child and tells her and just cries out, "Hepzibah, make your way up the stairs. Go up the stairs. Okay, close your eyes and go up the stairs."
Roll your attempt at this to convince her.
Okay.
I'm deciding it's certainly one die. I don't think it's two unless you think that...
I'll put my insight in there if that'll take me up to 2.
Excellent, yeah.
So yes, and the highest was the insight die. So it was a 4, sorry. 4, and that was the insight die.
Okay, excellent. So 4, you succeed. She looks at you, nods, kind of looking at these figures coming up, and she bolts back up the stairs. Go ahead and roll insight now, since your insight die was highest.
That's 4, so that takes me up to 4.
Okay, you're at 4. The hands grasp so tightly you can barely move your feet now.
Would Duffy have noticed that he accidentally shot Lawrence, or could he not see through the shadow?
We'll see. We'll say that you can see what you've done.
Okay.
With an insight of 5, Sister Noelle is losing it and has started to put a lot of blame on this child. As I see her going up the stairs in sort of a furious rage, screaming her anger at God, she's going to make a grab for the child's ankles.
Okay, go ahead and roll. Sounds like 1 die or 2 if you want to add your insights.
Is there a possibility that I can add one of the failure die to that? Or are we not using that rule?
Yeah.
That's a great rule.
I've been wanting to try that.
Yeah, so what would be an interesting way in which this would fail?
So I don't know if it's possible for me to distinguish what's going on, but considering that was all I was concerned with, if I noticed that she turned to sort of grab for the child, I'm going to try and pull her into the ash pit with me.
Okay, great. So go ahead and roll a failure die along with her roll.
Okay.
If the failure die is the highest result of all the dice, then your action fails.
It is. It was my dice was a 2 and the failure dice was a 6.
Okay. So just as you described, Lawrence, you grab her, thrust her down into the ash, and actually into the grasp of her simulacrum, her rotting corpse, which now that you're all a little bit more aware of what's happening, you've had some time to take it in, you can see the face looks like an older representation of Sister Noelle.
Yeah.
And she says, "Rest your weary bones."
I shriek and grab for the golden the sign that she has with the intent of wrestling it from her and trying to bash her with it.
Okay. As that's happening, is there any other response from Lawrence or Officer Valdez? Just want to give you a chance to act.
I'm going to attempt to claw my way out of the ash pit. Maybe towards the... Well... I might out, so I'm gonna try and claw. How far into the ash pit am I?
Your knee depth and probably 10 feet across a 30-foot room.
Okay, so there's still a ways to go if I were to try and make it over to the other 2. So I'm gonna try and kick and scrap and try and make my way to the stairs.
Okay. How about Officer Valdez and Leslie as well?
If I see, so I shot Lawrence. I think I freeze in that moment. There's a bit of fear as I just my hand's trembling with the gun. I start to step back a little bit, not sure what this creature is ahead of me, and I'm just kind of moving away from it in a kind of dazed state, backwards towards the stage.
Okay. As you move back towards the stage, you kind of bump shoulders with Leslie.
Leslie, we gotta get the hell out of here. What is all this?
God, it is. Yeah. And I'll. He's like watching. What is the thing doing that he's pushed away? His simulacrum. Just curious.
Standing with arms prepared for a ballroom dance.
Oh, God, what a great guy. He just says, it is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And he's going to take the gun from Officer Valdez and shoot at the simulacrum if he can.
Okay, so the rolls we've got going are Leslie shooting at his simulacrum, Sister Noelle trying to grab the yellow sign, and Lawrence trying to escape the hands that are grasping at his ankles. Okay, go ahead and roll those.
It's a 6.
3.
3 for me as well.
Okay, so for the 3s, you barely managed to succeed. I think in this case, I'm going to have the two of you who rolled 3s also roll your insight as a response. You're still kind of wading through ashen remains and confronting these figures. Meanwhile, Leslie, you fire right into the head of the figure. It virtually explodes like an overripe melon. And you feel a sting at the back of your own head.
Oh my gosh.
Reaching back, you pull your hand away, and there's blood.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, what were our insight rolls for Lawrence and Sister Noelle?
2.
Okay.
I rolled a 4, and I think according to the rules, if I'm at a 5 and I roll lower, then my insight goes back down. Is that correct? Or no, that's only if I'm doing the
if
the
you do the
actions.
thing.
Information.
Yeah,
So I just stay at
something
5.
to suppress the insight that you've gained.
Yes, that's what I was gonna do with silencing the witness.
You could launch a campaign to discredit truthsayers.
Right now, do you think that's
right
a
now.
good time?
Yeah.
Get organized.
Okay, so I'm still at 5.
Okay, so Sister Noelle, you grasp the yellow sign. As you touch it, you feel it burn you, and your hand begins to immediately blacken as though burning.
I start singing the hymn I was singing earlier, Amazing Grace, but I'm like sobbing through it and crying through it, and I don't let go of the icon. I would like to try and bash at her head with that 3 score.
Okay. Yep, you succeed. You wrench it out of her hand, and as it burns you, you strike her again and again. She's laughing at you. As you strike her head, and it caves in, and you stave it in one last time, and she collapses and ceases to laugh. Lawrence, you wrench your feet out of the grasp of the hands clawing up from the ash and barrel toward Hepzibah. You reach her.
Okay. So I'll can I see up the staircase? Like what like
It's quickly
does
getting dark up there.
okay. But I don't see anything like I don't know. So looking to her, I'll say just go to the top of the stairs, but wait for us, okay? Just wait, just stay there and just kind of hold and wait, and we'll figure it out. I'm sorry we pulled you down here. I know you're not old enough. I'm sorry we pulled you down here, but I need to try and get some of the others to come with us, okay? I gotta try and get some of the others to come with us.
She's just looking at you with a blank expression, nodding.
Okay, so I'll kind of because I imagine I'm losing a decent amount of blood at this point, and kind of stick to the stairs, but scream in to the room. It's like, guys, we gotta go. We have got to go now.
Can I see the blood behind Leslie's head?
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's an open wound, like the exit wound of a gunshot.
Mr. Hayes, what'd you do? What'd you do?
Is it on the front of me?
No, nothing on the front.
Yeah, just like it blasted out of there. Hey. Hi. I don't know. He's gonna hand the gun back to him.
I think I drop the gun, like it just falls between us. I grab the flashlight, assuming you dropped it to grab the gun.
Oh yeah.
I grab the flashlight and I just start backing up away from like you and your bloody head and just being like, we gotta go now.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna start running back towards the ash pit.
Okay.
And I'm gonna grab the king in yellow, and can I find the other half of it?
Make a roll for an investigation.
All right. It's a 1.
It sounds like you're probably rolling your insight as well
Yeah.
for this roll, because you're risking
Yes.
you're risking everything.
Oh, great. That one's a 6, so it's higher than the 1,
Okay.
and
So-
it's a 6.
All right. You look
God.
back at your simulacrum, and he is holding the other half of the rehearsal script.
Oh.
You reach out and snag it. As you do, please roll your insight die.
Okay.
Um,
It's a 6. I go up to 5.
okay, Officer Valdez, you rush toward the ash pit, realizing that the hooded figure that had interposed between you is no longer there. But in the back of your mind, and then suddenly audibly, you realize that a dialogue has been playing. There are voices, all kinds of voices surrounding you, mostly coming from the stage, but also seeming to come from the ceiling and walls. I won't say what this dialogue is saying, because to hear it is to go mad, and I wouldn't dare utter the words to you, since this is just a game we're playing. But the dialogue begins to discuss Carcosa, the land of dark stars, the twisted city beyond the sphere of this world. And it utters things that you know in your heart of hearts is so true and so revealing to reality that it hurts to hear it. You feel naked, and you also simultaneously feel as though the world around you is naked and you're seeing it for the first time. All of you hear these words and physically shudder in revulsion as you hear them, as the King in Yellow plays around you. Officer Valdez, you manage to scramble over the ash heap, past these corpulent simulacra, and you reach the stairs where...
Should I roll insight for the dialogue? I'm kind of curious if it would have affected me.
Yeah.
Or
Let's
no.
have everyone roll insight, since it's playing in the whole room.
Okay. 6.
Okay.
I'm up to 6.
You're at 6?
Yep.
I'm still at 5.
I rolled a
Yep,
6,
yep.
which brings me up to a 4.
I rolled a 6, which I believe takes me up to...
A 5.
Yeah, it's a
5.
5.
Okay. Let's start with Officer Valdez. You reach the stairs. What are you doing or saying?
Lawrence is still there?
Yeah.
I reach the stairs, I turn around, like, flashlight kind of, like, just waving all over the place. I'm not sure if I see Noelle, like, in the ash, or if it's just kind of the chaos of it all. I look to Lawrence, Hayes is gone. He's head. He's shot, and we gotta go. We gotta get Cherry Jubilee. And, I start just kind of like stumbling up the stairs, drunkenly.
Okay, Lawrence.
Like as desperately as Lawrence wants to leave, like I feel like he begins to feel weak in his legs and his, you know, from blood loss from just the overwhelming. So having slumps probably down at Valdez's feet, and isn't able to pull himself up and continue his escape out of the room.
Okay, Sister Noelle.
In response to this horrible sound, Sister Noelle is trying to sing to drown it out to herself with sort of crazed eyes as she gets louder and louder in her horrible rendition of Amazing Grace that's like sobbing and screaming and saving a wretch like me as she tries to with her blackened hand make her way to the stairs. And I think she sort of steps over Lawrence in her quest to get up the stairs. And she looks back for her rosary.
You see it nowhere, as the room suddenly seems to be filled with these hooded figures. Some of them have faces that are hollowed out, no face at all, but just a bowl. And inside you see this inky, star-speckled night of Carcosa. And that brings us to Leslie.
So this is happening, and the sounds of the King in Yellow are happening, and the panic and the shake and the blood kind of starts to turn to a, confident stance, not unlike mirroring his own simulacrum, and looks at his pant legs and finds some of the white ash and powders his face and a little bit of the blood on his hands from his head to get some color on his lips. And as he's doing this, he says, "My hour is almost come, when I, too sulphurous and tormenting flames, must render up myself," and turn to the simulacrum. And are the sounds of the place still going on?
Yes.
And he's going to approach the simulacrum and start to recite the play along with it, and offer his hand up to dance with the simulacrum, if he'll have me.
Yes, he reaches out his grave worm hand, squeezes yours in a cold, pustule-covered grasp, and the two of you begin to dance as back and forth you recite to one another the conclusion of Act 1 of The King in Yellow. And as the others scramble up to safety above the charnel pit, onto the area where the tent was set up and back to the car, you remain below and you complete your recitation of The King in Yellow. And as you do so, this corpse form that you're dancing with has slowly become you. And at the end of the play, the final words of The King in Yellow, "We are one." You look down and this corrupted, flesh desiccated body collapses into a puddle. As your body decomposes in an instant, the stars wheel and spin above your head. Your sentience is not divorced from your body, and you feel eons pass as the flesh retains its memory and its knowledge until it is decomposed to powder and dust, and you know nothing other than ceaseless waiting for the King in Yellow. The rest of you return to Ipswich and thence to Arkham, returning this research to Professor Pruitt. And you're able to wrap up your affairs. So let's just do a quick kind of epilogue conclusion for the other three characters.
Valdez is not the same ever again, but he, as over time, I think, begins to convince himself parts of it was a dream, and there must have been some sort of hallucinations that they had down there, some sort of hippie crazy stuff happening. I think he makes sure that Hepzibah is like admitted into like the Abbey essentially, and he does also bring her a cherry jubilee.
Nice.
Sister Noelle accompanies Officer Valdez and Hepzibah to the gates of the Abbey, and as she stands there looking at the cross at the gates of the Abbey, she realizes she can no longer believe in the faith that she once held so dear, and she takes off her wimple and wanders off into the forest, humming Amazing Grace to herself.
So Lawrence recovers from his injury, though he's never quite the same. There were damage, so there's chronic pain. He's still racked with guilt about how everything unfolded. Never makes it back to school, withers away, finds it difficult to keep work, turns to drink, doesn't live well past his 30s, but is ever convinced that the hands that he first experienced out in the salt flats and then later felt at his feet underneath the earth, that at every turn, whenever he closes his eyes at night to sleep, that will be the night they arrive to take him, and then that haunts him for the rest of his somewhat miserable life, as he's not able to sort of shake the fact that there's this thing that is coming for him and will one day have him.
Well, thank you all so much. That is the conclusion of our Cthulhu Dark game. Hope you all had as much fun as I did.
Oh, that was so great.
That was
Wild.
good. That was
Just
good.
wild.
We're a little over on time, so I think we'll quickly conclude here and then maybe give a few minutes and jump into our next segment, which is spooky mini painting. Justin and I will do a little monster painting. Let me just quickly, first of all, thank all of you so much for your fantastic characters. Great role play. That was so rewarding. Thanks to everyone who stuck around and watched. Great to see Kate out there, Impartial Pierre, Reb Munoz, and others. We love you all. And let me just quickly remind everyone again that we've got our Patreon up. You can go to patreon.com/Ghostlight RPGs and subscribe to join our Discord community and have fun with us discussing games, playing pickup games, and other such things. So thank you all so much. That is the end of this segment. The stream continues.
We'll be back in a bit.
The scream continues. Ooh. I bet you're dying for the next segment.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Okay.